Tighten Up, the podcast, is brought to you by Hyperice, the leading provider of innovative technology for recovery, mobility, and improved performance. They help the Titans. They can help you too. Learn more online at hyperice.com.
Detroit, it's time to tighten up. Welcome to Tighten Up, the podcast, presented by The Shield NIL. Brought to you by Hyperice and Last Shot Energy. A state of the Titans, the latest in Detroit Mercy athletics, and a chance to hear from Titans all over the world. Here's your host, Dan Hasty.
Tighten Up, the podcast is back for another edition. As we roll along in 2025, we got a chance to hear from Antoine Davis in our last episode. How cool was it to hear from one of the great scorers in the history of NCAA basketball? You can go back and listen to that. We've had a ton of fantastic conversations with some of the people who have impacted Detroit Mercy basketball so much over the course of the last handful of seasons. And now we get a chance for the very first time to bring someone back on to Tighten Up, the podcast. And that brings us to Greg King, the co-founder of Team NILO, a purpose-driven agency empowering athletes through storytelling. GK, welcome back. You are the first person I get to say that to.
I am truly honored, Dan. Thank you for having me back.
You're the first person we've had back on the show, and the reason for that is because your first appearance was, and the response to it was massive. People had so many questions. Who is this Greg King? Where did he come from? And what is a NILO? So we basically had to have you back. So for those people who missed, and you can go back if you want, you can also go back and you can listen to our conversation with Greg in episode 5 if you want to get another listen into some of the nuances and some of the details of what Team NILO is. But for those who are looking to catch up, explain Team NILO and explain what a NILO is.
Yeah, so I'll be my elevator pitch, as they say. Really, our job is to help athletes develop their brand. And in this case, their brand is their story. And so we take a very hands-on approach of spending time with the athlete, with their family, with really anyone that has had some type of hand in the development of the athlete. And we put together stories. And so those stories, the objective is to boost engagement. And so the other thing that we do is we are all about impacting the community first. And so we create a NILO, which is a name, image, likeness opportunity, but really it's an opportunity for anyone, but in this case, athletes who do have higher visibility to come alongside nonprofits and really amplify the work that nonprofits are doing.
And we've been talking a ton the past few weeks. And one of the people who has certainly been getting higher visibility, and this is what happens when you go out and score 20 plus points, 5 games in a row, is Orlando Lovejoy. And today we get to do something very cool, and that is debut Orlando's story as he would tell it. And he gets to tell it with the help of Team NILO. We have a video that we are going to be playing for you coming up in just a few moments. So if you're watching this, whether it be on X or on Instagram, you will be able to see the video. And if you are listening to this as part of Tighten Up the podcast in an audio form, I can advise you to go listen. You can also watch the video on social media, whether that be through the Shield NIL, through Team NILO's Instagram, through my own social media channels. You can find me on X at that Dan Hasty. You can find me on Instagram at Dan Hasty. But before we get into being able to watch this, because if you're listening on the podcast, you will get a chance to hear the audio. Before we watch, how did this come together?
Well, shout out to Rick Neaton and the Shield. They have been very instrumental in supporting basketball, men's basketball. And I got a call from Rick one day, and he said, I want you to tell Orlando's story. And so Rick's, really mission was, everyone has a narrative of NIL, whether they don't get it, they don't agree with it, it's not mission aligned, or they just don't buy into, this new era of sports. What I learned through Rick and being present at the school was you had a young man that is Orlando. He's Detroit, but he's educated. He loves education. He has a spiritual background, and he really embodies what a Titan is. And he happens to be a really doggone good basketball player, right? And so Rick wanted to do a campaign of keep Orlando in Detroit. And so I had the opportunity to fly down to Detroit, me and my film team, and we spent 4 days with Orlando and the entire team. And we got to go on the road trip to Davidson, and I really just got to observe Orlando. But also I got to meet his family. And I think what you guys will see in this film is really who Orlando is, from the Lovejoy, the inside. And now, obviously, we all see the outside. And so I think it's a amazing kind of, piece that really does tell a good story of what the school is all about, right? And how this young man represents the school.
He's got 313 literally branded. It's tattooed on his arm. So if that doesn't give it away, I don't know what will. So sit back, relax, enjoy Orlando Lovejoy's story, presented by Orlando and our friends at Team NILO.
Love is a big part of who I am. I feel love, so I give love. A lot of my family members with this last name, they can't be in this opportunity, so I carry this for them.
It's our birthplace. It's what make us Detroit. Anybody can come to Detroit and actually thrive in Detroit or have a legacy in Detroit. He's one of the few ones that has.
My favorite thing about Detroit is the personalities. Detroit people, when we go outside of Detroit, everybody can tell, okay, they're from Detroit. I've seen people get robbed, seen people get shot at, I couldn't get shielded from everything, but my parents did the best they could.
I can honestly, truly say since he was 1, maybe 0, he had a ball in his hand.
So the gym for us was kind of like a daycare. Like our parents would just drop us off with $5 and just leave us there from 8 to 8. And man, I just remember how they used to tell me how lucky I was to have a dad who would spend time with me. Me and my dad, we just been through a lot behind basketball.
I haven't met a person yet that can do the things that he does and wake up and do it tomorrow all over again.
He's sensitive, but he's hard at the same time. He's able to discriminate between the two, or between the lines. He's hard. He gets that from his daddy. Orlando Sr. is about hard as they come.
It's my first 2 weeks of basketball practice. We just ran around the field, and my dad was the coach. He just wanted to see who would quit. We started with 12 guys. We finished the season with 6.
Joey, what's up, brother? How you doing, man?
Mr. Tim, he used to come from his house. School wasn't even open. Came and opened up the gym for us, man. This Mr. Tover. Now, I really did act up in Mr. Tover class.
He was not well-behaved.
I was our bad, Miss Butler. I'm still scared of her. She still scared me. This was my basketball coach.
He's just been, a great kid since he's been here.
I've been playing for 2 things, God and just to take care of my family. As I got older and I had a couple injuries And sitting out from basketball really made me appreciate how much I really do love basketball. And now I just play for the love of the game, you know. Outside of basketball, if it's just church and my daughter and my family, it's the only things I like to do.
He a person I go to first for anything. He like a mentor to me. I'm his biggest fan. I'm on the sideline every time he score. I'm getting up, jumping. Every time he make a three-pointer, he don't shoot a lot of threes, so I'm out there every time he make one or even shoot one.
He's always been a great player to me, and maybe because I'm the father, but I've never ever seen nothing that he couldn't do.
Hands up.
Every night when I stay late or come back, Orlando Lovejoy is in that gym. It doesn't matter if it's finals, if we're on Christmas break, any breaks, Lovejoy is going to be in that gym. So you know he cares and he wants to be a successful player.
You know, I don't know if I can say this, should say this, but a lot of people have been asking me about leaving in the second semester. Hell no, man. I'm staying right here with my dogs. We were picked last in league. We were one of the top 5 worst teams in Division I. But that's Detroit. We always been counted out, always. And somehow we always find a way.
1, 2, 3.
And there's no better way to do it than with Michigan, Metro Detroit guys. I'm glad I can be a part of it, you know? Detroit is back. The brand is back.
I'm telling you, I cannot remember somebody who has embodied Detroit Mercy the way that Orlando Lovejoy has. It is so refreshing to watch somebody like Orlando Lovejoy, just the way he positions just his outlook on all of this. By the way, there's a ton more where that came from on their website, teamnilo.com, and you can see some of the other things that they've put together. And thank you for sharing that with us, GK. So interesting. So now that you have had the chance to watch that back, give us some of your impressions.
Tighten Up is brought to you by Last Shot Premium Hydration, the official hydration drink of Tighten Up, the podcast. Their revolutionary formula is jam-packed with vitamin B12 and 0 grams of sugar. It helps the Titans hydrate, replenish, and recover. Try it at Callahan Hall during a Titans game or learn more at lastshotofficial.com.
I try not to look at things because then I critique it and Phil, my film guy, hates that. So being able to see that for the first time, it brought me back. And so if I could, think about that experience, there's a few things that weren't on there, but I want to tell the audience, his father, obviously basketball, but you could feel his love for his son. And Mr. Lovejoy Sr. is a great man. And yeah, he had a tough outer shell, and it was love for all of his kids. His little brother, I believe, is number 1 in the state as a freshman. But there's one question I asked him. I said, other than basketball, what was it? And he said, there was one thing that was really important to Orlando, and that was education. And what a lot of people probably don't know is one of the reasons why is Orlando's mother has a PhD. And so education is a huge part, not just basketball, to who Orlando is. As you can see, his family meant everything. I could not get Orlando to talk about him, or it was all about his team, his family, his daughter, going to walk, like things that everyone has heard on this podcast. And the last thing I want to say, which I have more, is we planned to go to that school. We drove around. And the one thing that I want to give Bates Elementary super credit for, because educators don't get enough of this. He had more teachers there, probably 12, that we didn't plan this. They were there and hugged him and remembered him. And it was like, wow, retention. These teachers are here, loving on these kids. And it was just a really surreal, great moment. And I saw this smile in Orlando that I didn't see the whole trip when he went back into that element. And Bates is right around the corner from the school. And a lot of a lot of the teachers didn't even know he was there. So let's get Bates and have a Orlando Lovejoy night, because all those kids were like, I know you, high five. And it's like, he is really a rock star right here in a 5-7 mile radius of Detroit Mercy.
And you get the impression that he was pretty much more the same kid during the time when he was in elementary school like he is now. So if somebody's watching this or listening to this who just got done listening or watching the same thing that we just got a chance to witness, that can help. If someone's listening, that can help. What can they do? Whether it's someone of the Shield or it's somebody that might be considering that.
Before I answer that from a very high level of things that we've done, models that we see working in NIL right now. For those that don't know or do know, obviously there's a portal, and schools, will pick up the phone, and you heard it. It wasn't scripted. He said it, that people are asking him to leave, what does that mean? People are offering him money, real money. And he said, there's nothing better than being here at this school. That Legend helped him get to the school, right? Shout out to Legend. But to do it with Detroit Mercy guys. And that last clip that you see TJ, you see Miles, you see Legend, you see Nate, you see Grant, you see Michigan guys, Chase. You have a Michigan-built team. And they're a young team that's exciting, and they play tough as nails. Like, I couldn't get them to dance, get whatever. I couldn't, because they just had this, as Professor Greg said, this moxie. They had a moxie because they had a chip on their shoulders, like the underdogs, and they embody it. But they still are great kids that smile. So from a very practical business standpoint, there's 3 ways. Obviously, one is, we can tell stories and amplify, these athletes, and hopefully that draws in brand and get whatever, opportunities for them. The other 2 models that have been highly effective is, one is, I'll start with cause marketing. So corporations, brands, everyone has a marketing budget. It's the 1st of January. And opposed to, having an athlete endorse a product, what we do is we do from a cause standpoint. So, for example, at Baylor, we worked with a nonprofit uplifting athletes. Their mission is to harness the power of sport to raise awareness and support for rare disease. My son has a rare disease. He was born with a congenital heart disease. So it was very personal. And to see 85 football players at Baylor come together and lift weights on their last day of practice before the season this year, but do it because 2 of their brothers had a tie into the organization. One of them had a personal tie because his cousin had epilepsy. And you can go to our website. That campaign is there. And so cause marketing, using budgets that are right now there to do team type of things that produces a lot of great content. It helps a corporation and a brand really amplify their commitment to social responsibility. But these are ways that an entire team can participate in NIL, and it mitigates the risk because it's an entire team. And so the second way is going back to the NILO. And so I'll break this down in a very practical way of the Make-A-Wish model. The Make-A-Wish model has a 85% overhead, give or take. And every service, because I have been part of the Make-A-Wish, there were services that were provided from the hotel, from Delta or American, the t-shirt, those are services that do what? They help the nonprofit advance their mission. And so the challenge that has always been is, if you have a 501c3 that has the first goal to help athletes get money, yes, that is not tax exempt. What we do is we create those opportunities or those services with the nonprofit. And then we will connect them to an athlete or to anyone. And then we assure from a management compliance standpoint that the athlete engages it and does it. And when they do that, then by definition, they are earning compensation. So this is not about NIL, Dan. This is really about the community that I saw around there and the need, and really even beyond. There's rule is, hey, how can we leverage NIL, but really the impact and influence of an athlete to come alongside like they did at Beacon Elementary and talk about financial literacy or reading books.
Right.
It's inspiring a generation that may be disconnected, and they just need to see that, hey, you go to the University of this or Detroit Mercy, I can do that. Yes.
And there are lots of ways that you can empower these student athletes, whether it's men's basketball, women's basketball, any other sports. But there's something that you should know about this. If you are able to help in this venture and you can enlist the help of Team NILO to do it, you can help Detroit Mercy. And you can also, and this is strictly from a financial perspective, you can also help yourself, correct?
That's right. If you have been blessed and have done well, or you own a business, you run a marketing budget, and you're looking for a way really to genuinely, authentically connect with maybe the disconnected, this is a great way, because again, these are Detroit Metro kids, hospital systems that may struggle. I have a healthcare background, so I know compliance and getting people to proactively engage. It's a big expense. It hurts the bottom line. And so how better to mitigate your risk? Well, Ryan K has a brother, and next month is heart awareness.
Ryan Callenbay.
Yeah. And you know what? I think Ryan's story connected to this with an entire team doing like what Baylor did. I don't think anyone looks at it and says, oh, these kids got paid to, just mark. No, there was a story and they supported one of their own.
And as you saw in Orlando's video, this is really, truly about how one can impact the community. And this is something that you guys special in. I mean, you specialize in this. I mean, you guys are all about this. It's right there in the title. It's a purpose-driven agency. It's empowering athletes through storytelling. So I know you have examples of things that you guys have set up in other communities and maybe some things that people could set up here. So if you can, give some ideas, give us some practical applications as to some things that maybe you guys have done, because this really is, and we said this, I think it was last week, it's a blank canvas. I mean, you can essentially do what you want, but for those who are thinking, okay, well, what kinds of things can I do? Yeah, get the ball rolling for us.
Wow. You've opened up the crystal ball. Well, first I want to say, Dan, thank you. Thank you to Rick Neaton. Without Rick, this doesn't come together. Without you starting a podcast and spending your time. So I love being a part of helping, you guys in a school that really is, it embodies the Jesuit way, right? Did not leave, is a high academic institution. And there's a community out there that have great people. And it's like, hey, through basketball, Callahan Hall, Coach Perry Watson, Dickie V, everyone loves Dickie V, Detroit. As I learned, it's like, man, look at the Lions right now. They should win the Super Bowl. But I want to thank you guys, because really we're the third party that's aligning with your brand to help you guys. And so I think that's important, that it's not about us. It's about what you guys have already been doing and have been doing, and we just want to help accelerate. From a very, hey, what can we do? Well, I did some research after I left, and came back here to Dallas, and I think it's the Velvet Peanut Butter is making a comeback. And there's an aggressive marketing campaign coming down.
And what is that? Just so people who don't know.
Yeah, so I believe it was it's a peanut butter company that used to be very popular in Detroit. It was bought out or not bought out, or there's a new investor. Can't think of his name, but great gentleman. And they want to be the brand of peanut butters and make a storm back into Michigan. And so I reached out, and so if he's listening, or if anyone knows, like, why not?
I believe it's Mark Reith, by the way.
There we go. And, he's an entrepreneur, and wow, how better to amplify peanut butter, right? Which, by the way, has a lot of health benefits. So it's not promoting a candy bar. There's the hospital, and obviously, the hospital has a myriad of problems of just, again, compliance. And I could see, we all saw what happened with Damar Hamlin. It's the same thing that happened to Ryan's brother. And when you don't have an awareness of what's happening with your ticker, and you wait too long. And so let's do some type of an event at the school, have people come out, be tested on an EKG, get a lot of content and Ryan's story, and push that out and show America how, we've leveraged this new era of sports to do what? To impact people, to impact change. One person may have their life changed. And then I would say, there are individual philanthropists that may not even be connected to the school, but hear this, and you want to leave a legacy because maybe something happened in your journey, and you just want to amplify that because that's a way to help you make peace, have peace. And so there's ways to come alongside. We have a fiscal sponsor, the Imprint Fund. They actually manage Damar Hamlin's organization. And so everything we do is compliant, it's transparent, and it's all about the impact.
Just to bounce off of that, whether it lines up with a player, great. It can also line up with you, the philanthropist. It can line up with a cause that is important to you. It can be something that you've experienced, something that you yourself have gone through. It's about aligning with you, with the school, with the athletes. It can be, again, I've said this before, it is a blank canvas. So there are so many directions that this truly can go.
And I think it's two things. One, the other one that we've done is financial literacy. Obviously, athletes, young athletes are able to make money. And if you're in the banking institution, there's no better way to, help your bank have more visibility than to help young athletes steward their money, manage their money, understand what money is. So we've done that at Tulsa with Ian Brock of New Nerd Money. The young man was part of the Peter Thiel Fellowship program. So obviously, very smart, but he was able to engage. And that, again, is on our website. You could see that. And it was impactful. And, kids got to learn about stocks and just things that they're there. But now in this competitive era of sports, coaches don't always have time. They don't have time. They're trying to keep their jobs. So the financial, market is wide open. And then I think the last thing, because I don't want people to miss this, cause marketing, impact, this is all a business. And there's nothing wrong with using resources to impact and still being able to, profit. In this case, our alignment really is we want to impact people. We want to utilize the influence of young men, young women that are athletes with the visibility of this school. And that's going to bring more eyeballs and positive, branding to what right now is confusing to some people. So please, this is a way that, yes, this can benefit your bottom line.
I have another way that can also impact the bottom line. If you are on the fence, finish this sentence for me. The best thing that you can do that costs next to nothing is
come to Callahan Hall and watch these young men. Wow, like the brand is back.
That's the easiest thing. And this team has gotten off to a competitive start in conference play. And look, based on what happened last year, that word is valuable considering everything that we dealt with last season. I think that's all anybody was hoping for. this year. And who knows where it's headed this season, but I think it's safe to say that expectations have already been exceeded based on where they were coming into the year. And just to have players that identify with the city of Detroit, with Detroit Mercy, give them such a massive leg up from years past.
Yeah. Dan, if I can say one thing, because I want to make sure this definitely doesn't. What I was very impressed with was the entire unit of coaches, trainers, equipment. Everybody. The strength trainer. Forgive me for names, but you could tell that what Coach Montgomery has done very quickly is he has established, a culture from the top down, and everyone was aligned. But those coaches, the dedication that they're giving to those kids, and you can see the buy-in from these young men. All of the coaches, they all have stories, they all have journeys, and they are truly invested into those athletes. And if you don't want to do it because you don't see value in investing in it really is, it's an investment into coaches that are shepherding young men, to do way more than just play basketball, and a university that's giving them a top tier education. So this is about the team, the university, the coaches, the teachers. Shout out to Professor Greg, co-chair of the history. Everyone that's had a hand in making this school what it is today. And this school is still here in a community that, again, you don't always see that in today's day and age. And so I think if we bridge the gap and come together, take care of people, great basketball, man, it's an underdog story that I think everyone in America can appreciate. March Madness, when a Detroit Mercy is in the, Sweet 16. It can happen.
It's not out of the realm of possibility. It's happened before, can happen again. So, one last time, for people who can help Detroit Mercy, can help themselves, where do they go?
Go to the Shield, go to Team NILO, whichever one. Happy to have a conversation and walk through some very practical ways of how you can change the game in a great way.
That's theshieldnil.org, theshieldnil.org, or you can go to teamnilo.com. That is Greg King. And that is another edition of Tighten Up the Podcast. Again, thank you very much for watching, listening. You can find me on X at that Dan Hasty. You can follow me on Instagram as well at Dan Hasty. Much more to come in the weeks ahead. We've got much more in Detroit Mercy basketball as the men and women's team continue their trek through Horizon League play. And do not forget, it's a big help for us if you can rate the show and review the show. If you can give us 5 stars, it's kind of like an Uber driver. It's a big deal if we can get 5 stars, much better than 4 stars. So if you can do that, it helps us tremendously. It's a whole algorithm thing. But we appreciate everyone that has given us such an outstanding response to the show to this point. Back with more later in the week, and I'll talk to you Titans of Industry next time.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Tighten Up, the podcast. Join our community at The Shield on theshieldnil.org and follow us on X and Instagram at theshieldnil.
If I can tell you one thing above all else as part of this show, it would be this. If you're unfamiliar, if you haven't done it before, join the community at The Shield online. It's online at theshieldnil.org. theshieldnil.org. That's theshieldnil.org.